Hi, my name is Queena, and I'll be presenting on the Drury Lane Theatre during the English Restoration. The Drury Lane Theatre was originally built in 1663. It was built under charter by Charles II, given to Thomas Killigrew and the King's Company. It was originally the Theatre Royal in Bridges Street, but it burned down on January 25th, 1672. But a second theatre was built on Drury Lane in 1674, which is the location of the theatre that we now think of as the Drury Lane Theatre. Third theater was built in 1794, and the modern theater was built in 1812, and it is still the theater that we have now. Apparently, the theater is haunted by a man in gray, which is a skeleton, who is a skeleton in a gray coat with a tricorn hat and a knife in his heart. And apparently, seeing ghosts are good luck for some reason. English Restoration. The time period I'm talking about is the English Restoration. It came after Republican rule from 1649 to 1660, which is also run by Puritans, who were, well, to put it kindly, killjoys. So once the exiled Charles II uh, came back to restore the monarchy, he also restored art and theater, which was very censored during the time of Republican rule. And Drury Lane Theatre was built after his comeback. The original Drury Lane Theatre was a proscenium theatre with a very fancy proscenium arch. It had sliding scenery for spectacle, and plays started at 3 to use natural light, but according to Samuel Pepys, I think his name is, the acoustics weren't very good if you were sitting at the further ends of the theatre, and the paths in the theatre were very narrow. So it was very nice, but some of the stuff was not very good. Plays, playwrights, and audiences. There was a lot of public unrest during the time of the Restoration, so theaters often um, performed older plays to, I guess, um, calm them down, to put away the radical thoughts. I'm not sure how that works. But the audiences were mostly upperclassmen, upper class people, nobility, and the king, because they were rich and they were able to afford it. Restoration tragedy and restoration comedy were two new types of plays that were very popular during the time. Tragedy was um, a prominent playwright for Restoration tragedy was John Dryden. A prominent playwrights for Restoration comedies were William Wycherley, George Farquhar, John Vanbrugh, William Congreve. And of course, the old plays mentioned were by Shakespeare, Fletcher, Beaumont, Johnson. Fletcher and Beaumont also wrote The Humorous Lieutenant, which was the first play presented in the theater. So about liveness, what we expect from liveness in contemporary times is just being in the present with actors and audiences, having very changeable, immediate, and reactive experiences in the theater, but liveness during the English Restoration was pretty much the same, but also very different. What we expect from liveness now is basically um, contrived from a dichotomy of live theater and mediated theater, is my opinion. But what they had then in the 1600s and 1700s, live theater was basically the only kind of theater they had. They didn't have cameras, recorders, whatever. So live theater was the only way they could experience theater, and they definitely didn't have the same ephemeral expectations of theater that we have now. Because when we go to a theater now, when we go to a live performance now, we expect something like that's very different from what we would be able to see from YouTube or a video or whatever. Theater and society. So those who went to the theater were usually upper class people, elite nobility. As previously mentioned, they were uh, had radical ideas, and theater was a way to calm them down. Puritan rule prior to the Restoration was very restrictive to theater, so soldiers would often raid theaters and playhouses, and take them down, and they were very much banned and censored. The Restoration and Charles II brought back theater and legitimized it, and it very much encouraged it. The playwrights and performers were mostly men, but Aphra Behn is a female playwright, a dramatist. She was one of the first English women to make a living by writing. And there were very raunchy and suggestive women performances, so there was a place for women in theater. It was slightly outside of the norm. Citations.